More sex, more money, more fun, ways to nudge change. I should be sitting here, but I'm going to stand backstage and listen intently. Good afternoon, Rob. Thanks for waking us up.
Thank you very much. So I think I should be clear, I'm not offering you guys more sex, more money, more fun, just to be very clear. But okay, so I'm Rob, I live in Nairobi. These are the people I work with. I think it's important. I make youth media together with my colleagues in Kenya and Tanzania. We've been doing it, I had some slides, by the way, and I've only got 5 minutes, so I thought I'll put them on the internet and you can have a look at them later. So there's a more detailed description of what we do and how we do it at this link, so I encourage you to have a look at it. We've heard a lot today about the kind of almost apocalyptic risks of youth population bulge and the danger that we can see ahead of us if people aren't given things to do. And so one of the things we do is we measure intently what young people are doing in East Africa. So here's some numbers from our recent last annual surveys in Kenya, where we do a nationally representative sample. And you can see the trends are all bad. So in 2007, things went badly wrong in Kenya. The elections fouled up. There was almost a civil war at the beginning of 2008, and it maybe was the first sign of this tension. It was young people with not a lot to do, young people who were led into misbehavior manipulated perhaps by politicians. So our response to that was to start a media channel called Shujaz, which is a call out to young people to step it up. And what we're seeing then is the trends are generally down, except for one group of young people across East Africa. We call them the hustlers. And so essentially what we've been doing for the last few years is we've built a factory that makes hustlers. So we started off doing that with a comic book. And we created a storyline with some young people in it who look like real young people. And we distributed this comic book free across the country. And in fact, today we're the world's biggest producers of comic books. We've given away almost 100 million copies since 2008. So we started off thinking, well, we'll create a soap opera. And the soap opera will tell stories and people will learn from that. But actually what happened is that real young people started to get involved in the story. From the very first day, we started getting messages from real youth saying, that's my story, I'd like to participate in that. And so something miraculous has happened in that way. A bigger and bigger and bigger community has grown around this idea of young people coming together to share ideas. So we deliver the story in a whole bunch of different media. We make a radio show, we distribute comic books, as I mentioned. We're huge on social media, we make games, we do events, YouTube. We made a film last year on a mobile phone. We distributed it through video dens around Kenya. And along the way, we've acquired about 6.5 million regular audience. So between 15 and 24, we have about 6.5 million, somewhere a bit north of that. If you include older and younger, we regularly talk to 10 million young people in Kenya and Tanzania. So it's just over half of all the youth in Kenya. That makes us one of the most intense media experiences in the world, one of the most intense media brands in the world. So what we've discovered is that there are things we got right in the design of our media which are really important. And I think what I'm going to focus on for the next couple of minutes is just to think about what could I offer you as advice if you're trying to engage young people at scale and you're trying to drive positive change. So one of the things we've learned is something you must never do with young people, and that is you mustn't boss them around. And I think we kind of know that because we were all young once. And the one thing you don't want is someone preaching to you. So one of the things we realize in hindsight that our channel is very good at it doesn't have that. It's a community of young people talking to young people. And that's really important to making change happen. And as a consequence of that, some energy is created amongst our audience that leads to a whole bunch of really, really good outcomes. So when we measure the effects of our media, and we measure everything in extremely detailed and robust ways, we get a whole bunch of quite remarkable effects. So young people who follow the brand are more financially fit. That means they make more money than they spend, they're good at saving. They use contraception. We have about 20% increase in contraception use amongst people in our audience. If you're a 19-year-old girl in Kenya and you follow Shujaz, you're 3.7 times less likely to be married than if you're not in our audience. And if you're not married, it means you probably haven't got a baby, it means you're working, it means you're making money, it means you're still in school, a whole bunch of good things happen. You're also more likely to vote, and you've got more agency. You're more confident. We've been running a panel study, a longitudinal panel study, which allows us to do regressions over several years with the economics department of Tulane University in somewhere in America. And they've just told us that if you follow our media on 2 platforms, you are $22.7 better off every month. And it's causal. It's caused by exposure to Shujaz. So $22.7 more in your pocket. If you follow us on 2 platforms, it's $250 a year. We've got about 650,000 people in that group, which is $170 million, something like that, put into the youth economy last year. So $170 million just from one segment of our audience, coming from mostly from that idea of agency. I can do it. I've got this. I know people. I've got ideas. I've seen I should be saving some money. I've been inspired by this young person who's got a hustle, who's planting, who's selling, who's transporting, who's trading. I know how to make my life better. So last couple of ideas before I go, if I can make it click. So 3 things, I think, just to think about if you're trying to run a viral channel for young people in Africa. The first thing is, are we really showing respect? Do we really know what the audience wants? Are we really seeing the problem that we're trying to fix through the eyes of the audience? In our world, we call it player first. Everything we do is player first. That's the first question we try to ask. The second question is, do we know what people want? Because at scale, you can't make change by pushing it. That doesn't work. You have to get to pull. People have to want it. We have to align what we want with what our audience wants, otherwise it's not going to work. None of these ideas, none of these great intentions that we have in this room today will come true unless we line up what we want with what young people want. And the final one is, are they laughing? If they're not laughing, they're not going to do it. More sex, more money, more fun. If we can deliver those things to young people, if we can assign those things to the action that we want, by the way, you'll get 10 million audience too. It's how you do it. You line up the good stuff. Because otherwise, it's just paternalist, it's round in circles, and it doesn't fit. So we're on a journey. By 2020, we're going to hit 20 million lives in East Africa. We're going to make a measurable difference to 20 million young people by the end of 2020. And maybe I'll come back and tell you about it then. Thank you very much.